Reading Tiny Bird Fly by Elliot. I exist in two places, here and where you are, Margaret Atwood. We were together, I forget the rest, Walt Whitman. Do not go gentle into that good night, rage, rage against the dying of the light, Dylan Thomas. Preface. What you are about to read is a book that deals with the theme of dissociation. I was diagnosed with DID in 2009, and in this book I describe, among other things, my own experiences of dissociative identity disorder, DID. Not everyone has heard of DID, which used to be called multiple personality disorder. The movie Sybil was released in the 70s and depicts what life with DID can be like. Nevertheless, it took many years for psychiatry to accept the diagnosis. Over the years, also the understanding of what trauma is has increased. DID is not a personality disorder, but a syndrome caused by severe trauma. Compared to Sybil and the Hollywood version of the DID, Split, the disorder is often more low-key, less dramatic. Each person with DID is unique, and the parts are shaped by individual experiences and personality traits. I want to tell my story to increase knowledge and understanding of both the impact that childhood trauma has on the psyche and my experiences of DID. Annika Lilja Jung is a trauma therapist and author, and I think she nicely articulates the purpose and nature of the different parts in her book Live Now on trauma and dissociation. Subpersonalities can arise in a person who is exposed to trauma early in life. The small child's fragmented world does not grow together as the child grows. Therefore, a coherent person does not develop. You could say that different parts are frozen in the past and live on in the perception of threat. Each sub-personality has its own identity, with its own abilities, memories, and feelings. But who are they really, the different sub-personalities? What characterizes them? What do they look like? What strategies does each one use to try to find security? The normal and apparently well-functioning part is usually referred to as ANP. The acronym comes from the English language and stands for apparently normal personality. The same person can develop several ANPs. For simplicity, we can call the ANP everyday person. It puts all its effort and energy into being a manager in everyday life. When should I sleep, eat, drink, go to the toilet, be active and social? The everyday person manages daily life and works to make everything work in the best possible way. They work hard and carry a heavy load. As long as external life goes on without disturbance, it can work quite well. But the everyday person tends to struggle when some event triggers past experiences that are worrying or threatening. In order to make life manageable, the everyday person systematically tries to avoid such situations. You could say that the everyday person suffers from phobia when they want to avoid emotions, closeness, and maybe other things at all cost. The everyday person is accompanied by one or more emotional parts of the personality, EP, that are highly sensitive to stress. Through various behaviors, they try to escape the experience of what has happened. Survivors carry strong emotions linked to their difficult memories. They all want to protect themselves, but often they have different solutions on how to do this. Some parts take a very strong position of control. This personality's behavioral pattern is strongly linked to becoming active in situations when they perceive that control is needed. Their vulnerability is completely hidden. This sub-personality often takes control through anger and often have a phobic fear of someone getting close. Then they fight for their life. At the same time, other emotional parts often take a completely different role as vulnerable victim. It is an emotional sub-personality with its vulnerability in focus. This part is usually quick to flee, but may have a strong need to seek protection in a relationship with a caregiver. This may involve a desperate desire for attachment. Often these sub-personalities' only option for survival has been perceived to be obedience and submission. Each part of the person has its own characteristics and plays a role in our survival. One may be responsible for taking care of the body, making sure we have food in our stomachs and so on. Another part ensures the well-being of the children. Another defends the integrity of the body when there is a real perceived threat. Each part performs one or more tasks and works stubbornly to achieve its goal. They are all parts of a common system, but none of them is in overall control. There is no conductor linking all the voices in the choir. Understanding how deeply divided the different subpersonalities are from each other is one of the fundamental tasks for the therapist in the treatment work. Researching which subpersonalities may know about each other, which ones are at each other's throats and fighting each other's battles also needs to be sorted out. What does the inner interaction look like? Who is shouting and screaming and scaring the others? Are there any conscious interactions and cooperation between the subpersonalities? Which parts know that which ones exist? If so, how do they see each other? How do they behave when one part chooses to dominate completely? What is the nature of the communication? How well do they distinguish the different roles and shortcomings of each other? There is a long list of questions that need to be answered. The different subpersonalities may be separated from each other by different depths and degrees. Sometimes some information and emotion seep between the islands. Sometimes the parts throw memories and experiences between them. Sometimes they don't communicate at all. The islands are almost completely isolated from each other. Sometimes the person is not aware of their alternative identities. Subpersonalities can be very careful to keep their existence and history secret from each other. The emotional parts of a person with trauma-related dissociation can intrude on the seemingly well-functioning part and affect the person's life with varying degrees of strength. On the other hand, the emotional parts can be kept at a distance for a long time and not allowed to intrude into the everyday person's life. During this time, the person may manage to work hard, study intensively, and pursue some other project that fills their life. Starting a family can be just such a commitment. Then suddenly something can happen in life that prevents an almost total avoidance of the story. Then the emotional parts of the self emerge. These emotional parts can be more or less independent. They may know about each other more or less, or not at all. They may even be unaware or only beginning to suspect that there are other parts within the person. At times, the emotional parts can take over the entire field of experience and behavior of the everyday person. They can also live in parallel and emerge at different times, often with anxiety or strong memories. Annika's book is full of encouragement and hope, and I agree with her. With the right help, we can take back ourselves and our lives in the way each of us wants and needs. DID is complex and takes time to process. With this book, I hope to portray the complexity of trauma and grief, as well as love and hope. I believe in the goodness of the world and the power of healing. I also believe that no one is completely alone. Psalm 139. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depth, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. And so, after every chapter or 2, or 3 sometimes, I have added my comments, just to clarify, for people who want to study DID, and now, after my trauma therapy, my EMDR therapy, I have some notes to add. So these are my comments for the preface. People who have DID are individuals, and symptoms can vary somewhat. I can only truly know my own story. For me, DID started to develop at the age of 4. I have memories of being one identity and being whole. This has encouraged me to work as hard as I can to heal and come home. For others, DID may start to develop from infancy. They have never experienced anything but being multiple, and it would be impossible to imagine being only one and seem like a loss. DID is not a personality disorder like apes. Even though strong emotions and lack of trust are involved, the two diagnoses are fundamentally different. I have a strong core that is able to protect itself, the protection being DID. That is, walls of dissociation between me, the soul, the self, the core, and the perpetrator's threat of extinction. Understanding DID is an ongoing process within psychiatry, I do believe, but so is the wider understanding of consciousness, as well as the self. I have found my own meaning through all the pain and misunderstanding, and I hope it can be of inspiration for you who are on your own journey.